Maya walks purposefully, her hand lightly resting on Shadow's harness. Each step is deliberate, her posture steady. The faint murmur of voices grows louder as she approaches, accompanied by the occasional clang of a bottle hitting the pavement. "Well, look who's here. Little Miss Independence," a voice jeers. Maya halts, tilting her head slightly. Shadow stiffens beside her, his muscles tensing as his sharp ears swivel toward the noise. "What's the rush, sweetheart? Can't see where you're going." Another voice joins in, the words dripping with mockery. Maya's grip on the harness tightens, but her voice remains calm and steady. "Excuse me. I don't have time for this." A loud scoff follows. "Where are you gonna go? You don't even know where you are." Maya exhales slowly, the weight of their hostility palpable. "I don't need to see to know who you are." The laughter fades, replaced by an uneasy silence. You hide your fear behind words like these, thinking it makes you stronger. But it doesn't. It only shows me who you really are. A low growl rumbles from Shadow, subtle but unmistakable. The sound carries more weight than the bikers anticipated. "What's your dog gonna do? Scare me off?" Maya stands a little taller, her voice unshaken. "He doesn't need to scare anyone. He knows when to act and when to stay calm. Do you?" The tension thickens, every word laced with quiet defiance. There's a pause, a hesitation. The bravado in the voices begins to falter. "Whatever. You're not worth it." The voice mutters, retreating. Faint shuffles and fading murmurs follow as the group disperses. Maya kneels down, her hand finding Shadow's head. She strokes him gently. "Good boy," she whispers. "You kept me steady." Shadow nudges her leg, his silent reassurance grounding her. Rising to her feet, she resumes her path, her stride unbroken. Each step feels heavier than the last, but she carries herself with quiet strength. Eyes watch her from behind curtains and half-closed doors, but no one steps out. No one speaks up. Their silence speaks volumes, but Maya keeps walking, her head high, her hand steady on Shadow's harness. Maya's hand glides gently along Shadow's harness as they walk into the park, the familiar sounds of children playing and birds chirping bringing a small sense of peace. Her cane sweeps rhythmically in front of her, guiding her steps along the cracked concrete path. A low rumble of motorcycle engines breaks through the tranquil atmosphere. The noise grows louder, then stops abruptly. "Look who it is," a gruff voice calls out, cutting through the quiet. Maya pauses, her grip tightening on the harness. Shadow stiffens beside her, his ears twitching toward the source of the voice. "Back for more, huh?" Randy's voice echoes with a sneer. Footsteps approach, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. Maya stands her ground. "I'm just passing through," she says firmly, though her voice trembles slightly. "Passing through our space," another voice chimes in, followed by the sound of laughter. The footsteps circle closer. Shadow's low growl rumbles from his chest, barely audible but unmistakable. "Ah, the mud thinks he's scary," Randy taunts. There's a pause, then the sharp clatter of a cane hitting the ground. Maya's heart races as she hears the familiar sound. "Give it back," she demands, her voice rising with urgency. "What's the matter? Can't find it?" Randy mocks, his voice dripping with cruelty. Maya takes a steadying breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "You think this makes you strong? Taking from someone who can't see you? It doesn't. It just shows how weak you really are." The laughter dies down, replaced by an uneasy silence. "Keep talking, lady," Randy says, his bravado faltering. "You think you're better than us?" "No," Maya replies, her voice steady. "But I know I'm stronger. You don't scare me." Shadow steps closer to her, his presence grounding her in the moment. Maya feels his strength radiating through the harness, a silent reminder of the bond they share. The bikers shuffle uneasily, their confidence waning. "Let's go," one of them mutters, and the sound of footsteps retreating follows. Maya exhales deeply, crouching down to pick up her cane. She presses her hand to Shadow's head, her fingers tracing his soft fur. "Thank you," she whispers. Shadow nudges her leg, his quiet reassurance easing her frayed nerves. Later, Maya stands at the counter of the local police station, her hands resting on the edge as she speaks to the officer behind the desk. "They surrounded me in the park, took my cane, and threatened me," she explains. Her voice is calm but laced with frustration. The officer leans back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Did they actually hurt you?" "No," Maya replies, her jaw tightening. "But if they didn't hurt you, there's not much we can do," the officer interrupts. Maya's shoulders tense. "So, you're telling me they have to hurt someone before you take this seriously?" "Look, ma'am," the officer says with a sigh, "it's not that simple. We'll keep an eye out, but it's a small town. Things like this happen." Maya steps back, her heart sinking. "Things like this happen because people like you let them," she says quietly, the weight of her words hanging in the air as she turns to leave. Outside, Shadow presses against her leg, his warmth offering a small comfort. Maya kneels beside him, her hand resting on his back. "It's just us, Shadow," she murmurs. "But we'll figure it out. We always do." Shadow's ears twitch as he scans their surroundings, his senses attuned to every sound and movement. Maya rises, her resolve hardening. She may feel alone in this fight, but she knows she isn't without strength. Shadow's behavior begins to change in the days that follow. He tugs her gently away from certain paths, his movements deliberate and cautious. Maya notices his unusual attentiveness, the way his body tenses when they approach familiar places. "You know something I don't you?" she asks softly, her hand brushing over his fur. Shadow nudges her hand in response, his silent vigilance speaking volumes. As they walk, Maya feels the tension in the air, an unspoken storm brewing. But with Shadow by her side, she finds herself standing taller, her steps more determined. "I'm not afraid of them," she says aloud, as much to herself as to Shadow. "And I'm not backing down." Shadow glances up at her, his quiet confidence mirroring her own. Together, they move forward, knowing the fight isn't over, but neither is their resolve to face it head on. The air is still, heavy with an unsettling quiet. Maya's cane taps against the pavement as she walks, her steps steady but cautious. Shadow's leash is firm in her hand, his presence guiding her through the alley. The familiar sound of her footsteps echoes against the brick walls, offering a semblance of comfort. From the shadows, faint whispers break the silence, followed by the sound of boots scraping against concrete. Maya pauses mid-step, her grip tightening on Shadow's harness. Well, Randy's voice cuts through the stillness, low and mocking. "Look who's out for a stroll." Maya's heart pounds, but her voice remains steady. "I'm just passing through. I don't want any trouble." "Oh, but trouble's already here," Randy replies, his words dripping with menace. The sound of footsteps grows louder as more voices join his, the group closing in around her. Maya's fingers curl around the handle of her cane, her knuckles turning white. Shadow tenses beside her, his body angled protectively. "You think you're brave, don't you?" Randy sneers. "Walking around like you own the place, like you're untouchable." "I'm not looking for a fight," Maya says firmly, her voice calm but resolute. "Let me pass." Randy laughs, a cruel, hollow sound. "Let you pass? Nah, I think we'll keep you here a while." Before Maya can respond, there's a sudden shove. She stumbles, her cane slipping from her grasp and clattering to the ground. The cold, hard pavement presses against her palms as laughter erupts around her. Shadow growls, the sound deep and menacing, cutting through the biker's mockery like a blade. "Whoa, easy there, mutt," one of the bikers says, stepping back instinctively. Randy doesn't flinch. He reaches out, grabbing at Shadow's harness with a smirk. "What's this?" "You're big, bad guard dog." Shadow's growl deepens, his teeth bared as he stands firm between Maya and the bikers. His eyes lock onto Randy, unyielding and fierce. "You really think this dog's gonna save you?" Randy taunts, yanking at the harness. Maya lifts her head, her voice cutting through the tension. "Let go of him. Now." Randy laughs again, but there's a flicker of unease in his eyes. Shadow lunges forward slightly, his growl escalating into a sharp, commanding bark. The sound echoes off the alley walls, startling the group into silence. For a moment, no one moves. The bikers exchange uneasy glances, their confidence wavering under Shadow's unwavering presence. Maya pushes herself up slowly, her voice calm but firm. "I said, let him go." Randy hesitates, his bravado slipping. He releases the harness with a grunt, stepping back. "You're lucky we don't want any blood on our hands tonight." Maya straightens, her hands trembling but her resolve unshaken. "I'm not the one who's lucky," she says quietly, her words carrying a quiet strength. The bikers retreat, their footsteps fading into the distance. Shadow steps closer to Maya, his body pressed against her leg as she steadies herself. "Thank you," she whispers, her hand finding his fur. Shadow's tail wags slightly, a silent reassurance that she isn't alone. As Maya retrieves her cane and resumes her walk, her steps are no longer tentative. They're firm, purposeful, a testament to her resilience. The fear lingers, but so does her determination. "You and me, Shadow," she murmurs. "We've got this." Shadow's ears twitch, his quiet strength guiding her forward through the darkness. The cold, still morning air settles over the town as the dust of the previous night's confrontation begins to settle. Maya stands by the edge of the park, her cane lightly tapping the ground, but her thoughts are a world away. She's been through a lot in the past weeks. Each step, each breath, seems both heavier and lighter at the same time. The weight of the struggle lingers, but there's something new in the air, something that feels like hope. The sound of footsteps behind her brings her back to the moment. She turns slightly, recognizing the voice before she even sees the figure. "Maya." It's Randy. His voice is quieter than usual, no longer brimming with the cocky arrogance that had once come so easily to him. There's an uncomfortable tension hanging between them, like he isn't sure how to begin. Maya doesn't immediately respond, her eyes focused ahead. But she's not scared. She's far from it. She's learned to stand strong, even when the world doesn't seem to understand why she's still standing at all. Randy clears his throat. I wanted to say. I'm sorry. For what happened? For everything." Maya's brow furrows slightly. She turns to face him, taking in his words, his posture. He's not the same man who'd mocked her so callously just a few days ago. She can see the weight in his eyes, but that doesn't mean it'll be easy to forgive. He hasn't earned that yet. Still, there's something in his voice that makes her pause. "You hurt me," Maya says softly. "You took something from me that night, something I'll never get back. But more than that, you hurt yourself. You let hatred take over, and it made you blind to everything else. To the truth." Randy lowers his head, guilt and shame flooding his expression. I didn't think. I didn't understand." Maya's voice softens, but there's an edge of conviction there. Most people don't. That's the problem. They never stop to think before they act, to ask themselves why they do what they do. They don't realize how deep the pain goes when we're treated like we're less than human. It's not just about me. It's about everyone who's ever been looked at like they don't belong. Randy looks up at her, his eyes searching hers, trying to find some thread of understanding. How do I make it right? Maya stands a little taller, a slight but firm smile touching her lips. By changing. By seeing. By listening. And when you do, maybe you can teach others to listen too. For a moment, Randy doesn't speak. His chest rises and falls with each breath, the weight of her words settling in his mind. He's not sure how he'll go about it, but he knows he's made a first step. He swallows hard. I'll do whatever I can, he says quietly. Maya nods. You've already started. Now, you just have to keep going. As the days pass, the ripple effect of that conversation spreads through the town. Randy, though unsure of where to start, begins seeking out the few people he can reach, those who were once part of his gang, those who saw the same division and hate that he had. Some of them listen, some don't, but the seed of change has been planted. A few weeks later, Maya walks into the community center, Shadow faithfully by her side. She's greeted with a sense of quiet reverence. It's not the same town she walked into, unsure of where she belonged. This town is different now. She can feel it in the way people greet her, in the way they move around her, as if she's no longer an outsider. Maya's role in this shift hasn't been without sacrifice. She's had to dig deeper than she ever thought possible, reaching into places of herself she didn't know existed. But with each step forward, she's felt the weight of that choice lifting. Her story has spread through whispers, through conversations, through those she's spoken to directly. And now, she stands in front of a group of young activists, eager eyes waiting for her words. Change doesn't happen overnight, she begins, her voice steady, filled with the kind of truth that demands to be heard. It happens when we start to see each other, really see each other. It happens when we stop accepting the way things are and start fighting for what could be. She pauses, her gaze sweeping over the faces before her. I won't lie to you. It's hard. There will be times you feel like you can't go on. There will be times when people won't listen. But what you need to know is that you are never alone. When we stand together, we are stronger than any force of hate. And don't let anyone tell you different. A young girl in the front row raises her hand. How do we start? Maya smiles, her heart swelling with hope. You start by listening. By understanding. By asking questions and, most importantly, by acting. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But you have to start somewhere. Her words hang in the air, their weight not lost on anyone. This moment is more than just a speech. It's a turning point. It's the beginning of a movement, fueled by love and the promise of a future where change is possible. As the group of young activists breaks into applause, Maya feels a warm hand on her shoulder. She turns to see Shadow, his calm presence a steady anchor by her side. Her heart swells, and she gives him a soft pat. You and me, huh, she whispers, her words a quiet promise. We're just getting started. And with that, Maya and Shadow walk out into the world, a symbol of resilience, of transformation, and of the quiet power of love that continues to drive the fight for justice. The town, once fractured, now carries the seeds of change, seeds that will continue to grow as long as people like Maya keep planting them. And though the road ahead may not be easy, there is a certainty now that it will lead to a future where every step forward is one of progress.